Hi guys, it's me again, your teacher Jayan. And today we'll talk about the topic for quarter 2, week number 5, which is disseminating information from surveys. So, based on our last time's lesson, which is actually creating survey questionnaire, now we go to how do we disseminate information or the data that we gathered from the survey questionnaires that we created. So let's begin. For this lesson, our most essential learning skill or competency is still gathers information from surveys, experiments, or observations. Our specific lesson objectives are describe how to organize gathered information from surveys, experiments, or observations. Second one is to organize information from surveys, experiments, or observations. So today, our keyword is organize. So what is organization or to organize data? The question that we need to answer now is, what do you do with the data or information you have collected after conducting your survey? That's what I already mentioned earlier because you created the survey questionnaire last time, or you check rather the survey questionnaire that you created in your subject, practical research 2. Remember the checklist I asked you to fill out? That is for you to evaluate whether you were able to follow the guidelines in writing a research questionnaire. So that's the question. So after gathering data from the survey, so what do we do with those data? We organize the data. Why do we need to organize the data? Well, of course, we organize the data because we want to analyze those data. Why do we need to analyze the data? Because, of course, ultimately, in research writing, you need to answer your research questions. And your answer to your research questions should be based on the data that you have gathered. So, the first thing that you will do in your data that you gathered, of course, is to organize them. Oh, here we have a sample situation. 12 people were asked which sandwiches they had bought from a sandwich shop. Their answers were chicken, tuna, egg, chicken, egg, tomato, chicken, tuna, tomato, egg, chicken, chicken. So, let's imagine this is really the answer to this is the answer. This is how these answers were written in a manuscript of a research paper. So, do you think you will be able to understand the answers? So that is why we need to learn how to organize the data before we analyze them. So what can we do with this data, with the answers from the respondents? First thing, you have to look for similar answers. So what are the similar answers? We have chicken. How many chicken? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 chicken. We also have tuna. How many tuna? 2 tuna. How many eggs? Only 3 eggs. And then there's tomato and then tomato, 2 tomato. So you have to count. You have to tally them and then write the frequency. That is one way to organize your data, right? And then, but we'll be able to discover other ways or several ways to organize and display data as we go along this lesson. That's the bottom line. You will not be able to analyze and understand the data you have gathered if you don't know how to organize them. Let's continue. Have here is the sample. For example, a survey is carried out to test a manufacturer's claim that there are about 36 chocolate buttons in each packet. The number of buttons in each of 25 packets is counted, giving the figures below. So this is the first situation. So the data isn't organized yet. So what are we going to do with the data? We need to organize them, so look at the table below. We write down the numbers and then we count and tally them, and then we write the frequency. This one is what we call tally and frequency chart. Tally means the actual counting, and then the frequency, how many in each number. So the tally column is filled as a survey is being carried out. The frequency column is completed by counting up the tally marks at the end of the survey. Again, this is a tally and frequency chart. But we also have a group frequency table. So what is a group frequency table? Constructing a tally and frequency table with a list of individual ages will not be very useful as most ages in the range will only have one or two results. Grouping the data into age ranges, 71 to 80, 81 to 90, etc., produces this more useful table. So if you think in each item or in each age, there will only be very few answers, like one only or two only, then it is better for you to make them into ranges or to group them. That's the term. And that is where you begin your tallying and then count them and come up with the frequency. In this example, we use the data for ages. The ages could have been grouped 71 to 75, 76 to 80, 81 to 85, etc. The group size is a decision of the person collecting the data, but it is important that the groups are all the same size and do not overlap. In other words, when you create a group frequency table, remember you will create a range. The range depends on you as the collector, the data collector, or as the researcher. But remember, when you create a range, it has to be of the same size and do not overlap. For instance, 71 to 80, how many ages are there between 71 to 80? 10 ages. 71, 72, 73, 74, until 80. Same with 81, 81, 82, 83, until 90. Did you get that? Again, for group frequency table, there's a range. It depends on you, but it has to be of the same size and they do not overlap. The first one is just a very simple frequency chart. All right. Now, how do we display the data that we gathered from a survey? So I have here the three most commonly used displaying data technique or ways, but there are still a lot more depending on the type of data that you will display. You have the bar graph, the pie chart, and the pictogram. Note, it should always be based on the type of data. Your choice of what will you use to display data should depend on the type of data. Okay, let's have the sample. Oh, this is a sample of what is this? This is a bar chart or a bar graph. In this situation, a school of 120 students carry out a survey to see which subjects are most popular. Their results are shown in the frequency table. This is a bar chart. So what do you notice on a bar chart? Of course, you have to think of the choices. What are the choices? The different subjects. What are the different subjects? The sports, science, math, art, and languages. What have you noticed? Those choices were positioned or written in what axis? In the x-axis. And then on the y-axis or vertically, the number of students or the frequency. Always remember to write the labels, guys. Without the label, we cannot interpret your data. Always remember that. So the labels are, of course, the name of the subjects and the numbers of the students. And of course, don't forget the title. What's the title of the table? Or what's the title of the chart or the graph? Favorite subject. So the things to be remembered are the graph is fully labeled, the bars are all the same width and do not touch the height of each author. What do you notice still, aside from those things that I've already mentioned? What do you notice? The bars are in different colors because it helps for the readers in their interpretation or in understanding the graph because the colors serve as codes. For sports, yellow; for science, blue; for math, is that orange, tangerine, and then art. I do have a question. What is the most favorite subject? Based on this graph, it is sports. What about the least favorite subject? OMG, it's my subject. Languages. Same with arts. See? This is a sample of a bar graph. I know it's very easy, you know this already. Okay, the next sample is a pie chart. So what do you notice in the pie chart? A pie chart has a heading and a key, and the slice is clearly labeled. But in this example, it isn't clearly labeled. Well, there are color codes. Blue for sport, is that red for science, green for math? I think it's mostly purple for arts, and what's that? Blue green for languages. Hmm. What is missing? What's missing is the percentage or the number. Don't forget that when you do or when you create a pie chart, always include the percentage or the actual number because it's hard to interpret that. Unlike the bar graph, wherein if you look at like this one, I'll go back. Can I go back to the slide? No, I can't. That when you look at the y-axis or the vertical axis of the graph, then you can find the numbers. But in this example, there are no numbers, so it's hard to interpret that. Okay, you can only say that the biggest chunk or part of the pie is for sport, but what is that specific number? So don't forget to write that. Okay, the pie chart is divided into slices which are fractions of the circle. The size of each slice represents the frequency as a fraction of the total number of students. So it's also color coded and then slices into parts. Oh, we're done actually. We're already done with the topic. I told you it's just very quick. Okay, just remember that when you are done with your survey, you have to go straightly to organizing your data before you interpret. It's hard to interpret something if it isn't organized. Okay, next, you may use bar graph, bar line, pie chart, or pictogram, and etc. in displaying your data. But always remember that the use of those depend upon the type of data that you have. Okay, what else? And the pie chart, don't forget to write the labels. And what about the pictogram? Well, the pictogram, it depends on what is the purpose of your report. What is the purpose of the survey? But mostly in research writing, it isn't used because it eats a lot of spaces and it is not economical when it comes to the ink. Okay. Now let's try this activity. Time to check your understanding. Let's try to do this. 90 students took an English proficiency exam. On the way out of the hall, they were asked whether they found it hard, okay, or easy. Here are the results. So I guess you are asked to create a data or a bar graph for that activity. You may want to try that just for practice. For the assessment part of this lesson, I think this is true or false. What do you think of the statement? For instance, number one, an alternative to a frequency diagram is a bar line. Is it true or false? Pie charts are usually used to show time series data. That is, how one or more variables vary over a period of time. Is it true or false? What do you think of number one? If you have read the learner's packet thoroughly, then you may know that the answer is actually True. For number 2, pie charts for time series. Is it true or false? Of course, it's false. Why false? Because time series is for timeline. In frequency diagrams and bar line graphs, each frequency is represented by height of a bar line. Of course, it's true. Once the data has been collected, it can be displayed in several ways. Yes, of course. True. As I've mentioned, you can use pie, bar, pictogram, and others. A bar chart or bar graph is a chart or graph that represents categorical data with rectangular bars with heights or length proportional to the values they represent. The bars can be plotted vertically or horizontally. Of course, it's true. So for your assimilation, guys, this is a very important part of your work, huh? Don't forget to do this. Okay, I've already checked several papers with engagement activities, with assessment, but without assimilation. Remember, assimilation activities are 60% of your actual grade. So do not miss assimilation. Okay? So, a fitness club carries out a survey to find out the ages of its member. Here are the results. So the data are already given to you. These are all ages of the members of a fitness club. So what will you do with the data? You're given 2 tasks. Letter A, make a group tally and frequency table of this one of the data. Remember the second chart that I have shown you rather. That is what you will do. Think of the range. The ranges are actually already provided: 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and then etc. So just create a table of it. Count how many ages fall under that certain age, and then that will be your tally column. And the third column is the frequency. Count how many are there, then write on the last column. So, letter B, draw a frequency diagram of the data. Now that you have organized your data, it's time for you to display it. How will you display your data? It's up to you. Again, bar line, bar graph, pie chart, pictogram. Which do you think is suitable for this particular type of data? Okay? So I hope the activity is clear. The lesson is clear as well. The lesson is clear as well. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to post on our group chat. Do not personally message me, guys. Post on the group chat so that everybody will be informed. Okay, bye. See you again next time for our next